Hey there, folks. Today I thought we'd have a little knife discussion. I don't discuss knives too much in this channel, but I'm a pretty big knife guy. I carry a knife every day and use knives in the outdoors quite a bit. I bought and sold my fair share of blades over the years, but have gotten the selection down to what I consider a manageable level that still caters to my gear enthusiast bent, and am pretty much done selling and buying at this point. I figured it'd be fun to talk about the fixed blade knives that I've held onto and that I use around the property and out in the woods. We'll start with my go-to, the one that gets the most use and the one I grab most days when I'm home or heading out camping or backpacking, the SE4. The 3 is one of ESEE's signature blades and is one of the more popular fixed blades in the market in the survival, bushcraft, and tactical world. It is 8.31 inches long with a 3.38 inch cutting edge, weighs 5.2 ounces, and is made of 1095 carbon steel in the good old USA. These are the micarta handles, which have always worked fine for me, and it has the stock molded plastic sheath with a clip plate that I think is just perfect for a field knife sheath. The 3 is just one of those sweet do-it-all blades for me. I find that I don't end up using a lot of really big, heavy-duty knives like the SE5 or 6 or Becker BK2, BK7, and BK9. So the form factor of knives this size really works well for my purposes. It's not going to win any batoning championships, but it's perfectly robust enough to handle most realistic small wood processing and pretty much anything else you would need a fixed blade knife for in the outdoors. 1095 is just a great no-nonsense blade steel that has worked for outdoorsmen for a long time, and it's pretty easy to keep sharp. You just have to remember to keep it oiled and protected from rust. ESEE's unconditional lifetime warranty is also a pretty sweet feature. Next up, probably my favorite knife that I own, the now discontinued KBAR Becker BK15. This is part of the fantastic Ethan Becker designed line of knives manufactured by KBAR. I went through a phase several years ago where I was becoming a Becker head and had several Becker knives. This is the only one that I ended up keeping. It is 10 3/8 inches long with a 5.5 inch flat ground blade. It is made of 1095 carbon steel and has the stock Zytel handles on it that I wrapped with some self-fusing tape for better traction. I still have and use the stock Cordura sheath. It originally had a black coating on it, but I stripped it off. I never liked the Becker coating and greatly prefer the look and function of this blade without it. This is another great do-it-all outdoors knife with a definite advantage in game processing or food preparation tasks. The blade profile and grind is a little more suited to slicing and puncturing than some of the other common field knives. I think it's just something about the design of the blade that draws me to it. It's a really neat blend of old world and modern styling, and short of pounding the knife into a log to split it, it's going to be able to do pretty much anything you need a knife to do in the woods. It would make a pretty formidable defensive blade too, which is never a focus, but in a survival situation should not be overlooked in my opinion. Becker's handle designs are always very ergonomic, and it fits my hands very well. The sheath is functional, but someday I'll probably have a better setup put together for it, because this knife deserves it. I think it's very sad Becker discontinued these. We'll take a quick foray into small knife territory. Here's a newer acquisition of mine, the SE Kamplor CR25. This is a Cody Rowan design that I was super intrigued by when it was first announced. I dragged my feet getting one for a while, but finally bit the bullet last year, and I've been loving it. Small fixed blades are always fun in that they're easy to carry, but can pretty much do the majority of daily tasks around the property and can step into bushcraft territory just fine, especially if you're not relying on a knife for wood processing. It comes in at 6.25 inches long with a 2.5 inch blade that is 0.13 inches thick. Blade material is 1095 carbon with a cool stonewash finish. In the short time I've had this knife, it has seen a lot of use. I think that's the thing about the small fixed blades. They're just so easy to grab and stow in a pocket or put on your belt that they end up being used a lot. The handle is micarta and ergonomically works very well for my hands. The included sheath is leather and works fine, but I'm thinking about picking up a Kydex setup for this sometime soon. Overall, a very usable, compact fixed blade option backed by ESEE's rock-solid warranty. The cold steel Kobun is my only tanto-bladed knife, and it is a great, affordable fixed blade option for a variety of uses. As you can see by my knife stash, gimmicky and hokey marketing aside, I think cold steel makes an awesome knife for the price. The Kobun is a lightweight American tanto knife with a 5.5-inch Japanese AUS 8 stainless steel blade. It weighs in at 4.4 ounces and is 9 7/8 inches long. I purchased it with a tactical or defensive role in mind because I think there's a lot that makes sense about a fairly flat, lightweight fixed blade with some length and a strong tanto point in that type of scenario. But obviously it has never been used in that capacity, but has done its fair share of utility work, opening boxes, cutting rope, making feather sticks, and so on, and is totally capable of serving that role. It certainly has a very thin profile and would lend itself to being carried concealed if you are into that sort of thing. I tend to not beat on it too much because it usually gets stashed in a secure location as a backup to a defensive firearm, but if I wanted a fixed blade that was relatively low cost to use as a more utilitarian blade, the Kobun would make an excellent choice. I really love the feel and texture of the Cray-X handle. AUS 8 to me is a very functional steel that's easy to sharpen and maintain, so no qualms on that front. The sheath is Cold Steel Secure-X with a metal clip. Up next is a pure woods knife inspired by the knives of yesteryear, the Condor Bushlore. I liked my first Bushlore so much that I ended up with another one, and both see a pretty good amount of use as a bushcraft or chore knife around the property or in the backcountry. Blade length on the Bushlore is 4 5/16 inches with an overall length of 9 5/16 inches. Blade steel is 1075 high carbon. The blade is Scandi ground, which is more of a traditional grind that lends itself to simple field sharpening and excellent wood processing ability. The handle is some sort of hardwood that functions completely fine and really encapsulates that traditional look and feel. The sheath is leather and pretty decent quality. I've had no issues with either of mine. Like I said before, with any carbon steel knife, you're going to need to take care of the blade more than with a stainless blade. They tend to rust very easily if not oiled. I've had really good luck with infrequent applications with a tough cloth. If you are getting into bushcraft in the outdoors and want to get a decent knife to start out with, the Bushlore would be an excellent option, or if you have any use for a pretty good lower cost outdoors blade. The biggest knife I own, and maybe one of the coolest, is the Cold Steel Trailmaster. I bought this on a whim several years ago and I really love it. That said, it has not seen a whole lot of use. You may ask, then why bother owning it? To which I'd say, I just think it's cool. Big knives end up being kind of a hassle for me because I don't like carrying them around. For my lifestyle, walking around with this bad boy on my belt is just a little excessive and inconvenient. However, I wanted to have at least one big chopper, and this has been my favorite of the ones I've owned by a long shot. The blade is 9.5 inches long and made of 01 steel and is 5/16 inches thick. The handle is Cold Steel's Cray-X, which is highly functional in use, and the sheath is Secure-X plastic with plenty of attachment options if you want to rock this thing on your bag or pack. It is a chopper through and through. If you want to hack through stuff with a big knife, this is a great option. It can handle the smaller stuff too, but let's face it, you don't pull out a knife like this for your everyday tasks. When I think about a WROL or SHTF scenario and what I would want close by, the Trailmaster would probably get the nod. The CRKT Obaki is a very affordable fixed blade with a Japanese aesthetic designed by Lucas Burnley. I didn't really buy it with any real purpose in mind. I just thought it was cool and I've always liked small, lightweight fixed blades with a slim profile. The Obaki has a 8CR13 MOV blade that is 3.55 inches long. The overall length is 7.56 inches. The weight is 2.4 ounces. The handle is faux ray skin material wrapped in cord and has a really nice feel to it. The sheath is glass reinforced nylon and it ships with a cord to secure it around a belt or belt loop or whatever works. Usually the Obaki has an etched blade that's much darker. I'm not exactly sure why this one doesn't have the etching, but I found it at Smoky Mountain several years ago. It doesn't get a lot of use except as a hideaway defensive blade when I feel like carrying one, and some light EDC work when it does end up leaving the house with me. It's perfectly suitable for the majority of daily tasks you may find yourself needing a knife for. It's not the most amazing knife ever, but I've held on to it because I think it's cool, and for the price, why not? The Cold Steel SRK is my newest knife acquisition and has already been used a bunch. SRK stands for Survival Rescue Knife, so you get the idea. It's a stout, fixed blade designed to get you out of a bad situation and keep you alive. Because my life is fairly mundane, my use case is mainly that of an all-around utility and woods knife. I use it to prep firewood while doing yard work and keep it in my day pack when I'm doing longer hikes. The SRK is a 6-inch blade and is 10 3/4 inches overall. It weighs in at 8.2 ounces and has a blade thickness of 5 millimeters, which to me puts it in the heavier duty category in terms of the stuff I own. The blade is SK5 and is coated with a textured finish that I could take or leave. The handle is Cold Steel's Crayex rubberized material, and it includes a plastic sheath with several attachment options. This knife is just a pure user. I have been using it pretty hard and it's held up fine. No issues with batoning or other heavy tasks people say you shouldn't use a knife for. As you can see, that finish is already taking a beating, but the whole point of having tools is to use them. This knife is pretty affordable for what you get, which is another plus for a blade that you intend to beat on. I'm a fan. The KBAR TDI is a defensive knife designed in conjunction with the Tactical Defense Institute as a weapon retention blade to be worn on an officer or civilian support hand side in case of a gun grab by an assailant. As you can see, its design enables a simple learning curve. It's meant to be used with a punching motion in an emergency last-ditch situation. I'll be honest, I carried this knife quite a bit in my early CCW days, but rarely do now. I keep it around for the rare times I feel like having some sort of defensive option on me, but don't want to carry a gun for whatever reason, which is very rare. It weighs 0.2 ounces, has a blade length of 2.313 inches, and is made of AUS-8 steel with Zytel grips, which I wrapped in this self-fusing tape for extra traction. The sheath that is included is pretty bad, and I got this Kydex model made by Alpha Concealment soon after buying this. If you are interested in getting a TDI, I highly recommend you get a better sheath from one of the many quality Kydex benders out there. The Cold Steel Roach Belly is one of the cheapest knives I've owned, and also one of my favorites. It's inspired by the traditional Roach Belly knives, which had the distinctive upswept curve and sharp point and were popular in the 17th and 18th centuries. The blade is hollow ground and is made of 4116 Krupp stainless. Nothing to write home about, but that's why this knife is under $20. The blade length is 4.5 inches, the overall length is 8.5 inches, and the blade has a thickness of 0.10 inches. The handle is polypropylene, which also helps keep the cost down and is totally functional as it won't swell, shrink, crack, or rot. I have a bunch of these laying around and have found them to be a decent beater utility knife as well as a great kitchen knife for food prep and cutting meat. I think in an emergency, it probably would make a pretty decent defensive blade too, especially if you added some traction to the handle. One of the best value knives on the market, in my humble opinion. The Cold Steel blades just keep coming. This is the MiniTack Beaver tail. I was super intrigued by this weird blade shape, so I had to pick one up. Sadly, these are not being made anymore, because this is a cool knife that packs a punch for its size. The MiniTack series were designed as neck knives, but I have never really been a fan of neck carry, so this usually just gets stowed in my pocket. The blade is 3 3/8 inches long and is made of AUS-8 stainless steel. Overall length is 6 3/8 inches, and it weighs 2.8 ounces. The handle is G10 and has a rather non-conventional design to save weight and still provide a very secure grip. The sheath is standard cold steel plastic. The width of the blade makes for a really functional cutting tool. It can handle shearing, cutting, or piercing tasks quite well. I carry it when I just want something lightweight to put in my pocket, and it has held up great over the years and has proven itself very useful. We'll finish up with one of the first fixed blades I ever purchased, the SE4. As great as this knife is, I always end up using other stuff so it doesn't have the miles on it that you'd expect. In my mind, there is very little bad that you can say about the SE4. If you came to me wanting to purchase one fixed blade knife for the woods, camping, survival, emergencies, etc., I would probably point you in this direction. Simple and effective for most knife tasks, 1095 carbon steel blade with a drop point, a 4.1 inch cutting edge and 9 inch overall length, 0.188 inches thick at the blade, sturdy full tang construction, and ESEE's rock solid warranty. There's a lot to love. Even the sheath it comes with is good to go. It's a no-nonsense quality American-made knife that will serve you well for a lifetime of use. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you soon.